All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Caspio Live. It's Ned. I hope that you're having a good Monday. I hope that you can hear me as well. Hopefully, you can. Just let me know in the chat window so that we can begin today's session on adding a messaging system to your existing Caspio applications. I've kind of made some tweaks to it. I made it more like a knowledge base where people can post questions and then other people can reply to the questions. So slight tweak, but then you're going to be able to see how the communication goes back and forth between people and employees. Thanks, Brian. Welcome back. And everyone else, good to see many of you. I just want to preface and say that I don't normally do this, but I want to mention in case we have new people attending Caspio Live, even today's example that you're about to see, we can use standard features to accomplish that. But I want you to see how with some external coding languages like HTML, CSS, using some low code, how you can maybe improve upon it. You can have a slightly different functionality if you use low code versus no code. And I'll point out some differences between no code and low code with this particular example today once we get into how it was developed. Okay, so with that said, one thing I want to mention is to piggyback on what we did in the prior live stream. I've now completed the same look and feel of all the buttons. So when the user logs in, if you want to do that welcome page where you greet the user when they log in, I now have the button inline that opens up and collapses the video. So if you want to do something like that, it's available for download in the previous Caspio Live. So if you just go to YouTube and you look for Caspio Welcome, just those two keywords, you're going to be able to find in the description of the video the download file so that you can see how I did that. It's fairly simple. It just uses a simple line of script to show and hide this element when you click on the button. Okay? Let me see. So this is not going to be a messenger like doctor to patient. Instead, it's more like a group messenger. Yeah, that's correct. Although you could have a messaging going back and forth. So you could use today's example and do exactly what you're trying to do with the doctor and patient to message back and forth, with just a slight modification to the app. Yeah, so let me actually show you the live example so that you can see. And I apologize for the crude looking design. I whipped this up in about an hour on Friday. I am limited on time these days to make things look pretty, but the functionality is all there. I would leave the rest to you guys to polish it up to make it look visually appealing to your end user. But the first thing, typically what you would see is the ability to find something inside a thread. So you have different threads, and then you can search based on keywords on the title. Okay, so that would be the first thing you typically see. And then if you don't find it, you can post a new thread or you can start a new thread. And that's going to create a new block where people can now reply to that comment or that feedback or that message. So you could say, just for fun, we could say something like this. Who else enjoys Ned's live streams? Right, so I'm starting a new thread. I'll hit submit, and then you can see it. And now people can, reply back. I also, once I looked at this example today, a couple of minutes before the live stream, I thought to myself, I could have also had an image of all the people that are replying, maybe a small avatar image. And you could have also had maybe a file upload to be included as well. That did not cross my mind last week, but today I thought about that. Kind of wish I included that. It would have made the app a little bit more complete. But in any case, so now, if you guys would like to test this out, you can go to this page. So let me send you the link in the chat just to make it interactive. And then if you log in as Lisa Smith with the password test, and then once you log in, go down to team chat, and then you can submit your replies. Of course, not everyone's going to have the same username, Lisa Smith. If you have multiple employees, each employee will have their own username to log in with and their own password. And then once you get to that page, you're going to be able to submit your reply. I'll even post something myself here. I'll say, never mind. This isn't really a helpful topic. And then I'll just hit reply myself. And then you can see how there's already a reply from Lisa. So you could have that communication going back and forth. Now, what I mentioned at the beginning of the live stream, you can accomplish this using standard feature as well. But I wanted to show everything on one page. If you were to use standard features, you will be able to see a tabular report with all the titles of the thread, of each of the threads, right, on one page. And then you would have to click on the details link to go to a separate web page where you can see all the replies. But again, I wanted to have everything appear on one page. So what I'm doing here is I have a tabular report within a tabular report, believe it or not. So these are two different tabular reports, and I'm using an iframe inside an HTML block, and we pass some parameters to our child report that has all these replies. And that's how I'm able to link the parent to the child, right? Where we can see all the responses that belong to that main topic. So something nice that you can do if you were thinking about doing something like that, just to make everything visible on a single page rather than having the user click to go to a separate page to see all the replies. And again, even if you're building a standard feature where you see all the topics on one page, you could even include an SQL statement on that tabular report to show you the total count, so select count. And then you can have a column here that shows you how many replies came from that child table. Okay. Also, another thing that might be surprising is I'm using one table to accomplish this. I don't have two different tables. Okay. Normally, when you have a one-to-many, one thread, many replies, we're talking about two different tables, right? We have the parent table of threads, and then we have all the replies in a second table linked using a primary key and a foreign key. I actually have all the comments, including the topics, all listed inside one table. And you'll see in just a moment how that was done. Okay. And I can also reply to my other threads too, if needed. I can maybe say, never mind. I found a better solution on how to do this for those interested. My Venmo account is so-and-so. Anyway, something funny. And then you can see the reply back. Let's see, did anybody else reply? Yeah, we had quite a few replies. All right, so now my question for you, could anyone benefit from this type of an implementation inside their application? Just curious if this is something that you were considering or might actually consider adding to your applications. If you say no, that's completely fine. It may not work for your existing solution and what you've put together, but it's just a fun way to engage the audience, especially your internal employees, if you were considering building some kind of a knowledge base. And then we can filter. So if I'm looking for, let's say, inline, I can filter and it'll give me that specific thread. Would this be like using Slack? I'll be completely honest, I'm not that familiar with Slack. I should be. But yeah, I think it's where you have different channels and then people can respond to different in those channels with their comments and messages. So if that's the extent of Slack, I think it is for the most part, then yeah, it would be sort of like that same implementation, although it would be for your own Caspio applications and you don't have to use an external tool to link back and forth. Or MS Teams, yeah, correct. Very similar, yeah. In Teams, you have different topics, different channels, and then people can contribute, reply back. But everything can now be built in your Caspio application when users log in. They don't have to go to a different place. Can this be improved upon? Absolutely. Yeah, you can make this look much nicer, and you can have more functionality. For example, I could have an admin level user who can log in and have the ability to do an inline edit or inline delete, whereas the employee can only read the data, right? As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, I could also have a small image in front of the person's name. I might have some downloadable links too. So if you do post a thread and you have an image or a file that you want people to see, that's something that you can do too. But everything is all in one page. So I thought this might be useful for people to see how it was done. So let's get into it. So the entire solution has 4 different data pages. Let's go into my table so that you can see how the tables were done. So I have a user table. I'll just open that. And we have John Doe, we have Lisa Smith. I should have also added the title. That would be nice to be able to display as well next to the name. So you could have the person's title. I didn't go that far. But my instinct, usually what I do is when I create my user tables, I always have a title in my table. So I added that without even thinking if I'm going to include that in my application. We have the username to log in with. We have the password. We have the email address, which I didn't include. And then we have the username, which is going to be used to be displayed with the replies. Okay. Next, let's take a look at my view. So the view is only showing all the threads that are being posted, not the replies. Okay, I want to show you how this was done so you can see. So I have my comments table, which we didn't really look at. So let me show you the comments table so that you can see the structure of the comments table as well. Right, so we have the comment ID, that's the primary key. We have all the comments. Okay, we have the parent comment ID. Notice the ones that are with the blank, these are all the threads, the main topics. And then we have the replies to those threads. Okay, so all in the same table, but what the view is doing is filtering all of these comments that are blank. Okay, so I'm going to show you that view next. Let's edit. So we have the comment ID, and then in the criteria tab, you will see that the parent comment ID is blank. So as long as it's blank, then it's going to show you all the main topics, all the main threads. And my parent table, or that data page, is built on top of the view that's filtering all the ones that are blank. So that's how we get that main title to show up at the very top and only lists the main title or the main thread. So you'll see now when I open up my view that we have, can someone help me write an HTML hyperlink? Who else enjoys Ned's live stream? And the other one that I had before. All submitted by John Doe. There's no parent comment ID. That's the main comment. So that's why that appears as the main thread. Okay, because it's blank. All right, so now we're going to look at data pages. Let's start off with the easy one. So we have the filter capability. So when I click edit, I'm using a submission form. Hopefully a lot of people now know that you can use a virtual field to run a search. You don't have to build a data page for search and results, even though you could. But you could also use a submission form with the virtual field. And then in the advanced tab, we pass what I called T for thread. Okay, we pass that to the results page. So that's how we're able to filter all the threads by passing that value as the parameter. And I just have the data page refresh. And the results page, I'm not going to get into the details just yet. So this is the main tabular report that displays all the thread titles. I'm just going to show you how I filter that. So there's my comment, and I'm receiving external parameter T. So that's why on the front end, when you run the search for a thread, let's say you look for live stream, you're going to be able to find that result. Okay, now let me cancel out of that for now. And then we have, to start a new thread, it's a simple submission form. So that's also based on the comments table. There's my data source. We're going to hit next. Comment submitted by. And then you have the comment. That's a text area. I made some adjustments to it. Okay. And I'm basically saying continue next element, which is my button. Oh, sorry, which is submitted by. The submitted by is a hidden field. You don't get to see that, but I'm stamping the user ID into the comments section so that I know which user is starting that thread. And then finally, we have using an inline style to put that button side by side with my other field, okay, which is next to my comment. So on the front end, you can see how my button is side by side with my text area. All right, so that is the submission form. And now let's get into the more complicated tabular reports. So again, I'm going to, let me see which way is the best way to explain this. So let's take a look at the main tabular report first. So we'll hit next, next, based on the comments table, filter data. Okay, based on the comment, we receive the parameter as lowercase t. All right. Let me just make sure to explain this correctly here. So inside the main tabular report, we're displaying the main thread title, who submitted it, date and time. So if you look at my HTML here, you will be able to see feedback details, the main div block. Then we have the feedback line, which is the comment, right? So this is my ID, feedback line. In the header section, I'm basically defining all of my properties and values for the feedback line. So font size is 18 pixels, margin left is 8 pixels, color, font weight. So all of the properties and values that you see for the feedback line are applied to this feedback line that you see here. If you use inspect element and you select that, then you can make adjustments to it. So if I want to change the size of my main thread title to, let's say, 20 pixels, I can adjust that. I can also change the font weight. If I want this to appear more bold, I can just say 800. Did it change it? Sorry, over here. You can see how it's thicker and more bold. So I could do that in real time. And then if I'm happy with those changes, I can go back to my Caspio account and I can update that ID feedback line, which will then be applied to my comment for feedback line. Then we have the ID for senders. So we have submitted by, and we have the date and time. And then we also have, this is just to separate the top and bottom. And then down below, we have the iframe. And now what the iframe is doing is displaying the data page, the child data page. And within that child data page, we're passing the comment ID, we're passing the user ID, and we're passing the title. I've also enabled scrolling on my iframe. You can see scrolling, yes. And I've adjusted the height to 250. So on the front end, we have the ability to scroll up and down. And my height is 250. If I want that to be taller, I can just adjust that to maybe 350, a little bit bigger. Okay, so you can add some different attributes to your iframe if you want to make changes to it later on. But basically, the URL that you see here, let me go ahead and save. And now when I refresh, you will now see a taller block. It'll be 350. Okay. That URL that you saw in the iframe is the child data page. This one here. All I did was hit deploy, enable deployment status, grab my URL code, copied it, edit my report, my main parent report, and inside that iframe, I paste that link. And in the process, I am passing the comment ID, the user ID, and the title, the comment itself. So now, when we look at the child report, and by the way, if you're attending the live stream for the very first time, I will make this available for download in the description so you can study it and you can see how I did it. It's really not that complicated, okay? I promise. It's just a very simple window within a window. So you have a child report embedded inside a tabular report to be able to display the parent and all the responses in the child tabular report. So this one here is also built on the comments table. Okay, we hit next, filter data, no need to search. Hit next. Then we have the parent comment ID as the filtering field, and then the comment ID, which we passed from the parent table. Okay, we passed the parent table so that we can now link the parent ID to the child. Okay, and that needs to equal the comment ID, and it's the same parameter name. Okay, comment ID. We hit next. Next. We have the inline insert. That's what gives us the ability to insert at the very top. You can also move that to the bottom if you'd like. And now here we are actually receiving information inside the fields. So if I look at the comment ID, I don't need to do anything here actually. So submitted by, you can see how I'm receiving the user ID in the child. Okay, so when I hit reply, when I submit, I want to know who sent that reply. So we're stamping the user ID of the person that replied to that main thread. Okay, so that's important. We have the submitted date, the parent comment ID. You can see how we're receiving the comment ID. All of this was passed inside that iframe. after that URL link. And let me see. And I'm hiding this entire section. The reason why I'm hiding this entire section is because I'm displaying all of my information inside the very first HTML block. And just like the parent report, okay, we have some IDs to manipulate and change the look and feel of the data that's displayed inside the reply. So we have the submitted by, we have the date and time, and then we have the comment itself. Okay, because if I included the fields the way I have them here, it won't look as good, because I always like to use HTML blocks to lay out my fields and how the responses look and how the data is shown up on the front end. So I typically use the HTML block and I insert my fields as parameters inside that HTML block, and I lay out the content the way I want. And inside the main header, I had to do a little bit of manipulation here to hide the header section of my tabular report. So notice how in this tabular report, believe it or not, this is a tabular report, but I'm hiding the top columns. So I just had to make a couple of slight modifications to hide the top row from the data page, so it's not displayed. All right. And then here you're going to be able to see, again, we have the ID for the sender. I just made some CSS tweaks, the way that data is displayed. If I wanted to have my image appear before the name, so remember how I said at the beginning, if I wanted to have maybe a small avatar image, I would actually, right in front of submitted by, I can add my image source tag. And unfortunately, I don't have a field for image anywhere in my tables, but I could include a field for image as a file URL. Right? And then we can do something like style equals. So let's say you have a squared image. You could do a border radius of 50 pixels to make the image round, which would look nice. Right? You could also have alt text. You can have title. But then this is a reference to your image. And then right next to your submitted by field, you now render that image next to side by side. So it would look really nice. And you could also do, width equals maybe 25 pixels, so it's a nice smaller avatar image that fits perfectly right next to your name. Okay, unfortunately I don't have anything to show you, but what if we were to just for fun sample image or sample user image, see if we can, I don't know, just pick, let's pick this person. Copy image URL. So I'm just hard coding this in, even though it's not going to pull any of my users' images from the table. And then I'll just add a line break here afterwards so that it's underneath. I think that should look good. Style border radius. Let me make sure my code is 50% with 25 pixels. Okay, let's just trial and error, right? Let's just see what happens. Okay, so there's my image. However, it's a little too big for my taste. So what happened here? Normally, I don't like to do stuff on the fly, impromptu changes, but since we're here, we might as well. Border radius 50%, style equals border 50%, width equals 25 pixels. I forget the semicolon. Let's try that. Okay, that's interesting. If you guys spot my mistake, with 25 pixels. Okay. So what am I doing right? Did I not include something? There's my little avatar image there. It looks good now. Let me take a look at my question. Do you know of any app that will write the HTML code and CSS for us, non-programmers? I understand Caspio, but whether HTML sees pop-up, I get stressed out. Yeah, I mean, you can use ChatGPT to write your code if you need it. You just tell it what you want. I don't know how many of you have heard or played around with ChatGPT, but it's pretty awesome in terms of what you can do. It's the new AI for... yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it's almost like Yeah, you can tell it to do. Let's just. I mean, I have it downloaded. Let me see if I. I mean, I don't want to go off tangent here and talk about something else, but it's fun, because it's fun how impressive it is to. I don't know. Write me a code. Right. How do I write a hyperlink? Right. So you can tell it anything, and it'll just take a few seconds. Right, and it'll tell you how to write a hyperlink. I want to make my hyperlink appear in blue, appear in red. Let me just see how intelligent it is. I mean, these text-based commands, right? Style color red. And it just tells you everything. I want a hyperlink to appear in green when I hover over. And it gives you a lot of different ways of how you can write it. Yeah, that's right. I'm wondering if it's going to give you like an inline style or if it's going to... Okay, so the style you can add into your header of the data page. A hover, color green, so when you hover over. Then you copy and paste into Caspio. Very, very simple, it's amazing to me. Sorry, I don't mean to make this the live stream about Chat GPT, but it's so impressive to what you can do. Write a blog about most underrated places to travel, or write a comical poem. And it just, I mean, I don't check for plagiarism, but I don't know. I think it's content that's never been seen before. In any case, I'm not going to deviate too far away from the main topic, but it's a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun just playing around with this tool, and it's amazing what it can do. It can write blogs, it can check for grammar, it can improve your writing. You can make my writing more enthusiastic, and then you paste whatever you wrote, and it'll just do all of that. It's unreal. Let me see if I do see a lot of comments coming in. How do I tell it to do that? Then you copy and paste into Caspio. You have double quotes before the with command in this. I have double quotes. Okay, so thank you. Somebody pointed out to my mistake here. Where are we? It's the equal sign. And yes, with. Sorry, usually I don't write it this way. Yeah, there we go. So it's with 25 pixels. That's a rookie mistake. There we go. So now it looks, I can polish this up to make it look nice. And obviously we would pull the image from the database. It wouldn't be just random image that's hard-coded into that space. It would be a parameter pasted from the table to display the image that belongs to that user from the table. Okay. And you can see this is only a one-tier response system. You could also create a 2-tier or 3-tier. So if I wanted somebody to respond to this comment, I could have maybe an inline reply where I reply back to just that specific comment. So comments within comments within comments, many different tiers and levels. Yeah, sometimes the code that you get back does need to be adjusted. That's correct. I've had to do the same thing. But it's so interesting. I even added some stuff about SQL, and it fixed it for me. Sometimes when you put SQL statements in your calculated field and you verify the formula, it comes back as invalid. So I just copy and paste into ChatGPT, and as you would guess it would come back with something that works. And then I verify the formula. It looks good. I might make another modification to it, but For the most part, it does the job. It's pretty cool. All right, so I don't want to lose my train of thought here on what we're doing today. So we have the parent, we have the child. I think I've just about covered everything, so I just want to make sure I covered everything on the child report here. So we have the comment, we have the date and time replied, we have the submitted by, and then in the header section, we have classes. This is just applying the box shadow around that main block. Okay, this is table cell width 100%. One more display none to hide the number and date, and just include the script here for the iframe for the content window resizer. So when actually you don't need to have this in here because on my iframe I'm using the height of 350 and I have the scrolling effect. It's up to you how you want that to look and feel. So if you want to have a height, defined height, and also the scrolling, then you don't really need to have this, okay, the script. However, if you remove the scrolling and you remove the height, then I want this script in here, so then you're going to be able to see how that list is going to get longer and longer because the replies are going to keep coming in, and it just keeps everything contained inside that main block. Okay, and let me see if there was anything else submitted by. Yeah, I think everything is good. So if anything, what you can do if you don't want to add this to your applications, you could import this into your account and just see how it was developed. Okay, just practice, learn from it. If in the future you might have a need for it. It's a fun way to keep everything contained on a single page without having to have too many clicks. You know, click to go to details to see the responses. But there's pros and cons to both. You know, even in this, if you're using standard methods, it's a little bit easier to develop because you have two tables. You understand how it was done using relationships, and then like I said, you could have that small SQL line that counts how many replies are in there. So if there are no replies, let's say you see a 0, you don't really need to click on the details page. But if there are a few replies, then you click on the details to see who replied. Okay. Let me take a look at my comments here. Truckster Studios, thank you for that fix on my code. Midjourney is another one. Be aware sometimes the code have received. Yep, we talked about that one. How hard would it be to collapse the comments section unless clicked? It wouldn't be too bad. You could actually use the same. Let me think for a second. Hold on. You could use the same tutorial that I used in the previous live stream. So if I go back to my dashboard to show and hide the video, you could also use the same implementation for that too. Let me just remember what I did here. So we have that. Yeah, I mean, it would be adding the same code that I have for clicking the button to each one of these collapsible or each one of these blocks. So then when you click on, maybe you have another link here to show and hide or collapse. And you could have it by default be collapsed too. If you need to add that to your code, just ask ChatGPT on how you can add that to the code that was used in the previous live stream. And then the user will have to expand and collapse. Yeah, there's so many ways to improve it. You can also have, when it's collapsed, you could have, again, that SQL line that shows how many replies. So if there are no replies, there's really no need for me to expand that. Yeah, I try not to get into too deep into code in these live streams because Caspio is definitely a no-code platform with low-code, okay? Lots of things can be done using no-code, but with low-code, obviously, you can make things more dynamic, more robust, and sophisticated looking for your app users. So that's where it gets a lot more fun, too, when you can do that. Yeah, sounds good, Alex. Another thing that we're going to talk about, not next week, but the week after, I made a promise a long time ago. I don't know who was here when I did my SQL live session. The SQL live session that I covered before included, I'll just show you really quickly. And I was reminded via email, just by chance actually, last week, there was a customer who needed some help with SQL. So he pointed this out to me. Wrong app. Let me go to apps. All right, so under my dashboards, in my live stream that I did a couple of weeks ago, I showed you guys how to use SQL to create these boxes, right, that display the data from the tables in aggregate. But I only covered off one search field, okay? And then I mentioned in my video I was going to do a follow-up session on how to include another search field. So if you're filtering, let's say, based on region, it's going to give you the total for that region. The reason why you don't see these numbers here on the left-hand side is because my data, my sample data is outdated. So you're not going to be able to see that because this is today's sales, this is month to date and year to date. But these are lifetime across the board. And then if you wanted to hone in on, let's say, a specific employee for that region, you hit submit, you will see how these numbers change, including the chart and the tabular report as well. So it's just a slight modification to the SQL on how to receive two different parameters. And then you have a wild percent to based on the null value, or if you select somebody, it's going to spit out the results based on that selection in the SQL. So we will be covering this off in 2 weeks. I will actually write that for you from scratch so you can see how it's done. Very cool way to display data in a dashboard layout. So if you are importing lots and lots of sales data, let's say, for example, you could have inside a details data page, you could have, again, HTML and CSS, and then we calculate the totals using a SQL statement, and then you feed that calculation inside the HTML block to have it look and appear nice on your dashboard. And then you have the filtering at the top. You had success this weekend? Okay, good. Good, glad to hear. Yeah, I covered this off a couple of weeks ago. If you need to find it, go to YouTube and just search for SQL Caspio, those two keywords, and you'll see the Caspio live that we did. I show you a couple of different examples, but this was the final one. The only thing is I did not have two fields, I had one field, and many people wanted to filter based on multiple fields. I'm also going to include a text field so you can see how that's done too. So we're going to have two drop-downs and a text field. So, you know, give you some options rather than just having drop-downs. Okay. All right, good times. Thank you guys for coming back. Again, it really means the world to me for you guys to come back to my live streams. If you didn't show up, we wouldn't have the live stream. So the fact that you guys keep coming back is the only reason why this continues. And as I always mention, if you want me to cover off something in the live stream, let me know. I always share my email. Please only send me an email with the request what you would like to see in the live stream. Sometimes I get technical questions, how to help out with the app. So I will reply back and say, if I do get a question like that, I will reply back and say that we will include this in the live stream on such and such date. Okay? On how something that you want to get done will be done. Okay? But I don't have the time to look into your apps and give you a thorough response on how that's done. Unfortunately, I wish that I could. I just don't have the time. But I dedicate time to the live stream. So if I find that your request is worthwhile or your question that you had from me is worthwhile for the live stream, I will include it and let you know when it's going to be in the live stream so you can attend and see how it's done. New way to replace Google Mashup. Okay, send me an email. Give me a little bit more context and some detail on what you're thinking, and then I'll let you know if it's something that we can definitely include in the live stream. I do like the idea. Just give me a little bit, elaborate a little bit more on that topic, okay? You have my email. It's right above there, so just definitely shoot me an email. I'm curious about what you were thinking of doing there. Yeah, thanks, Alex. I appreciate the input. I'm glad that it's helpful. And welcome to the live stream. Hopefully you'll be one of our regulars. I know we have a lot of people here, Dave, and a few others that keep coming back. So I appreciate it. And I know Steven's been here quite a few times now. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of the week. What I'll do is I'll close the live stream. I'll keep the chat running. And then by the end of today, you will see this application, okay, including this welcome folder that shows you how to show and hide that video on the welcome page. Okay, so all of this will be packaged together and available for download in the description of today's live stream. By the end of today, you will see that. A link that you can download and then just import this into your account. And then you can look what I did. You can improve it if you'd like. All right, with that said, have a good day, and we'll see you on Monday next week. By the way, Monday next week, we're covering off the patient portal application I did for one of our webinars that we had. So really quickly, if you have to go, you have to go. Don't worry about it. You'll see the description on the Caspio Live sometime today. But the application I developed for healthcare is a patient portal that has a doctor portal and a patient portal where you can log in. Doctors can manage patients. So if I do log in as the doctor, I'll just give you a quick glance at the application. So, you know what? You can even test around the application yourself. So here is the link to the application I developed. So if you want to demo it, you're welcome to. You're not going to be able to edit any data. You're not going to be able to submit anything. But if I log in as the doctor here, let's say Riley, copy in the email, and then my password should be saved. Yep, I sign in. And as the doctor, we see a calendar layout of all the appointments. Now, telehealth is huge. It became huge, especially during the COVID pandemic, at the apex of the COVID pandemic. So we were inundated with a lot of requests on how we can get that done. And what I'm doing is using, what's the tool that I'm using? With Zapier. So I'm using Zapier and, I'm blanking out on the name of the tool that I used. It's a HIPAA compliant tool that allows you to have that video conference with the patient to create the room with daily.co. Daily.co is the name. All right. So what Zapier does basically is when you click on the link or when you create a new appointment, you select the patient's name, appointment type. If it's a video call, so let's say we set up the appointment for what is today is the 6th. I have my calendar filtering just for the month of January. So if we do the 27th of January at, let's say, 9 a.m. Oh, silly me. I disabled the submit button. Well, and in any case, what's going to happen is when you click on that link, right, it's going to open up a new tab where you can now launch that video call with the patient through Zapier, because Zapier is sending the appointment ID to daily.co, and then we have this link here on the calendar that we can click on. In addition to that, you can see the list of all of your patients. All of this is fictitious data. I don't want people to think this is actual PHI. It's not. So when you go to my sample patient's name, you're going to be able to see the details of the patient, where you can edit those details. I can see all the related appointments for that patient. I can see all the related visits for that patient, including all the vital signs. Just a simple chart that shows and hides elements based on those vital signs. So if I wanted to see maybe a correlation between the blood pressure readings and the weight, I can hone in on that. We see test results, and I can send a message to the patient's portal. Some simple reports that shows all my data, just a holistic view of everything in aggregate, so I can see all patients. I can filter based on patient for a specific year. We have appointments by month. We have tests based on the type of test they took, and then just a show and hide of all the vital signs. Messages, all right, that we're sending, and then we have the surveys. Now the survey is automated, right? So what I'm doing here in this application is sending an email to the patient 5 days after the appointment date, and as long as the appointment is completed. So if you look at the patients here, it's a trigger, basically, that sends an email. If the appointment is completed, right now it's scheduled, right? So if I say, okay, this appointment is completed, hit update, And it's been 5 days now. Let's say today is the 23rd of January. It's been 5 days since then. I send that email to the patient for them to click on the link, opens up a survey, they fill out the survey, and as the healthcare practice, we can see what our patients are saying about our practice and our medical care, I guess. And last but not least, we have a profile here. As the provider, we can update our profile. So simple app, we has 2 portals. You can play around with it, you can see. And then this coming Monday, we're going to see how this was developed. And again, I will make this available as a download package in the description of the video. You can import this into your account so that you can see all the steps and how everything was developed. But we'll just do a deep dive looking under the hood, how all of this was created with Caspio. Okay. And I'll tell you, it took me 3 days to build all this out. Okay, 3 days, nonstop. Okay, not nonstop, but I'd say 8 hours a day with some breaks in between. So once you become familiar with Caspio's platform, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to build these things very quickly yourself too. I promise it's not that difficult once you get your bearings under you and you learn how to navigate all the objects within the platform. All right. I won't waste any more of your time. Sorry for, extending today's live stream, but just wanted to explain what we'll cover next week on Monday. And then the week after that, we're going to do the SQL filtering. Okay. So with that said, thank you guys so much. I will close the live stream, but I'll keep the chat running for a few more minutes. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.